Hey guys, it's Claire Aiken, the Fiddle Leaf Fig girl, and today I'm going to talk about a question I get all the time, is how to make your Fiddle Leaf Fig grow bigger faster. I know a lot of people out there, want big, stunning, majestic Fiddle Leaf Figs, but of course it's a big investment to buy a large plant. So the fastest way, and maybe the cheapest way to get there, is to buy a smaller plant and have it grow quickly. And so today I'll tell you how to do that. So the first thing you're going to want to think about when growing up a Fiddle Leaf Fig quickly is start with the biggest plant you can afford, because basically plants have sort of a momentum that they grow as they get bigger. A very tiny plant will take a long time to grow up, but once you get a medium-sized plant, it takes a little bit less time for it to put out new leaves. So there's sort of this growth curve where they grow faster exponentially. So start with a bigger plant if you can. If you want to start with a smaller, tiny plant, it's just going to take a little longer, and that's fine too. Second thing is give it as much light as possible. Light is the source of which it's going to grow. And so the more light, the faster it'll grow. And that's true for all plants. Put it in the sunniest position. If you live in a place you could put it outdoors on a covered patio, that's fantastic. The more light, the better. If you want to use a grow light, that'll help it grow bigger faster. The third thing is, plants are really constrained not only by their nutrition, but by their root ball. So in order to grow bigger, it has to grow a bigger root ball. And so it is constrained by the size of the pot. So to get a plant to grow bigger faster, you're going to want to repot it to a larger pot, probably every 6 months or at least every year. So if you're serious about your plant growing bigger, you want to put it in a larger pot. The caveat to that is you can't just put a tiny Fiddle Leaf Fig in a giant pot. That would cause the pot to never dry out, and eventually you're going to get root rot. So Fiddle Leaf Figs like to be, almost root bound. They don't like to sit alone in a giant pot. So you're going to want to go up 2 to 4 inches each time that you repot your plant. So if you start with a little bitty container, go up to a 6-inch one, then an 8-inch one, and then a 10-inch, 12-inch, 14-inch. Once you get to a big 14-inch one with a deep pot, then your Fiddle Leaf Fig probably has enough size of a root ball to get as big as you probably want it indoors. So it'll have a root ball in a 14-inch pot. It'll have a root ball big enough to get 6 to 10 feet tall. So once you have that size of a pot, what you're really going to want to do is focus on nutrition. If you want big growth and if you want fast growth, the quickest way to do that is to fertilize. And so I love our Fiddle Leaf Fig plant food. It gives the perfect NPK ratio that just gives tons of nutrition for your plant to grow up quickly. So it's a 3-1-2 ratio. You use it every single time you water so that your plant gets consistent growth and consistent nutrition, and it's not getting kind of this feast or famine cycle. So fertilizing your plant every single time you water year round is the best way to get it to grow very, very quickly. In addition to just the plant food, which is nutrition, you're really going to want to think about vitamins and minerals. So there are dozens of vitamins and minerals that plants need to grow really healthy, to have good immune systems, to have strong root systems. And so we make a houseplant multivitamin that, in addition to the food that you feed your plant, gives it all of these essential vitamins and nutrients. So I recommend combining Fiddle Leaf Fig plant food and the houseplant multivitamin for maximum growth. My next tip is you're going to want to keep your leaves really, really clean. So the amount of dirt and dust on your leaves, or hard water, or sometimes the growers spray them with kind of a waxy coating. The amount of stuff on your plant leaf is going to keep it from not only absorbing light, which it desperately needs to grow, but from also doing transpiration. And so it needs to release water, it needs to take in carbon dioxide, it needs to release oxygen. There's a lot going on, and it needs a clean surface to do so. In the wild, these plants are rained on almost every single day in the rainforest, so they are perfectly clean. In our homes, not so much. So if you want to help your plant do photosynthesis and do its metabolism as efficiently as possible, keep your leaves really, really clean. So one thing when you think about getting your plant to grow really quickly is it needs to be healthy. And so starting with a good soil is really important. They need excellent drainage. And so my trick for the best drainage for a Fiddle Leaf Fig is I use Houseplant Smart Gravel as my base layer. These are these big clay balls that basically lift up the root ball and allow it to drain properly to make sure it's never soggy at the bottom. And then I use Fiddle Leaf Fig soil to make sure it's a very porous, very, very well aerated soil that the roots can expand quickly. Because if you have a soggy or a compacted soil or something that's not the right pH for your plant, it's not going to allow the new baby roots to start passing through the soil and growing bigger. And that's how roots grow bigger, is they expand through the soil. And so we don't want it too wet. We don't want it to shock your your plant with the wrong pH, and we want it to be pretty easily, porous and not too compacted. So starting with the right soil is very important to allow that root ball to really expand quickly to support the growth of the plant. And I'll say the last step about getting your plant to grow quickly is to avoid any problems that are going to set you back. And so if your plant gets root rot, if it gets an insect infestation, if something goes wrong, if it gets sunburnt on top, you're going to have to cut off all those leaves. So you really want to avoid, play defense a little bit to get your plant to grow bigger, because if you get set back, like I did with this plant that I gave root rot, it's probably going to take me a year to catch up, when it comes to this plant growing new leaves, cutting off the old leaves. So you don't want to have any setbacks. You want to check your plant at least every week. You want to use the soil meter to make sure it's not too wet. Start building your intuition so that you know if your plant looks happy, if it needs more water, if it needs more light, etc. And so bonding with your plant, checking on it, and just creating your intuition to learn how to take care of your plant is probably the most important thing, so that you're not making any mistakes that are going to be a big setback for you. So I totally understand wanting to have big fiddle leaf figs. We actually have a video on how fast fiddle leaf fig plants can grow, so I will link to that below. I think it's really cool. We have a time-lapse photo of a fiddle leaf fig putting out new leaves, so I will also link to that. But I hope this video was helpful. Every week I give my advice for growing happier, healthier fiddle leaf figs. So if this was helpful, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.